Excellent. So welcome again, ladies. It's great to see you back for day 2 of the retreat. And before we get started on that, I thought it'd be quite nice if anybody wanted to share any reflections, any light bulb moments yesterday, or anything that's come up for them today based on the work that we were doing yesterday.
Yes, I would.
Go ahead, Sally.
I messaged you earlier, obviously, because I was one of those, as we discussed yesterday, that was really negative about the menopause, purely because I feel like it's changed me immensely, and I wasn't expecting that. And even just after our first session last night, I came away feeling so much more positive, and I know it was only an hour and a quarter or so, but I found it really, really valuable. It was lovely to listen to everyone else. I was taken back by how open everyone was as well, with, you know, everything that they're suffering or going through and what have you. So for me, last night was really, really good. And I came off of the call and started to reflect on things that I've been thinking about, and I just turn that around in my head. So thank you.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Really pleased for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And hello, Michelle. Just seeing that you were just doing a quick round of reflections. If anybody wants to share in terms of any light bulb moments or anything that they've picked up on from yesterday before we get really started.
Hello. Yeah, it was nice just feeling that sort of like you're not alone, and that community sort of feeling. Yeah.
Well, I've decided I'm going to go on HRT, even though I don't know where I am.
It's not going to be a bad decision, Christine. That's all I would say.
Well, I don't take any drugs, and it'd be quite nice when I go to the doctors when they say, "Do you take any medication?" to finally say yes.
That's a great way.
Well, I mean, I was crap taking the pill, so my hubby unfortunately went for the chop. Although I did go in the room, and ask where the bricks were. They realised I was in for it.
At least with HRT, it's a patch, probably a patch that you can stick on. You just got to remember.
Oh, great! I can't even keep a plaster on this skin. I have to get some gaffer tape round it.
I will tell you one of my fun stories. That was when I started HRT. I was on a great patch, worked perfectly. Used to change it after 5 days, and then after 2 days, they changed it a couple of times a week. And the doctor always said to me, if you forget to change it, it's not a big deal, because it'll still be releasing hormones. So it's not going to be a big problem. It was fantastic. It was like, it was just amazing. And then we had supply issues. And I'm not kidding. At one point, I was getting 1 month from one pharmacist, another from another one. I was going all around town trying to get them desperately. And in the end, my GP said, you know what, we'll change your patch. So I went from one that's about this big to one that seemed to be about this big. It's like, oh, that's a really big patch. And I whacked it on the side of my leg, woke up in the morning and thought, where the devil's my patch? Well, the first time it was stuck to my husband's butt, so he had some nice hormone replacement. And then the second time I found it stuck to my bed sheet. And I'm not kidding, it wouldn't stick to me, but I could not get it unstuck from my bed sheet. And it's even left a stain. It will not clean off. It's just awful. So that's my fun story about patches. And after that, my GP gave me gel, which was so much easier to manage.
My hairdresser is a very petite lady, and somebody put her on the gel but put her on the wrong strength. She said she went from being an absolute monster to the most energetic hyper thing that ever. She was running around like nobody's business, and I think her other half said, just go back and get something else.
Excellent. Welcome, Helen and Jackie. We were just doing some reflections. So now that we're all here, we'll get fully going. So this is day 2, which is brilliant, or evening 2. And I said yesterday, we're going to look at the psychological impact of loss at menopause. And that sounds a negative, but believe me, it won't be. We will be turning it into a positive. And it's very much looking at how you're going to manage that psychology of change, because how we manage that and how, again, we get in the right headspace will enable us to have a better experience. So before we get going, I'm going to do a mindfulness exercise with you all again, because I like to just get us focused in that zone. If you want to go on mute, feel free. If you want to keep your microphones open, that's absolutely fine. So first off, ladies, let's just get ourselves comfortable. Yeah, get a cushion if you want to. If you're lying down, just get yourself nicely comfortable where you are. If you're sitting on a chair, make sure that your thighs and legs are at 90 degrees, that your feet firmly grounded on the floor. That really supports you. Make sure that your back is supported, your neck and shoulders, and that you're feeling kind of nice and light, not too kind of shoulders up here. Resting your arms gently in your lap, your palms can either be face up or face down on your thighs, whatever feels comfortable and right for you. And then once you're in a comfortable position, gently just ask your eyes to close so that you can just focus your attention on yourself. And then I want to ask you to take a deep breath in through your nose, and bring that breath in so you can feel your chest opening up and filling your lungs and your diaphragm moving. And then gently exhale, a nice slow long exhale, if you can through your mouth, but if it's more comfortable through your nose, that's absolutely fine. So on your next deep breath in, take your attention to your neck and your shoulders. Just notice how they feel against the chair. Notice if there's any tension. If you feel one shoulder is higher than the other, just gently ask your shoulders to relax back down against the chair. And if you're feeling tension, grab a hold of that with that nice cleansing breath. And as you exhale, release the tension. We don't need that tension in our bodies. Then on your next breath in, take your attention to your chest. As we said, as you're breathing in, feel your rib cage lift and expand. Your back may well feel closer to the chair as we breathe fully into our lungs and around that cavity. Just notice again, are you feeling any tension in your chest, in your upper back? And where you feel tension, just gently ask that tension to release. Take the breath into the space, cleanse it, and then release the tension as you slowly exhale again with your breath. On your next breath in, ask your attention to go to your legs. Feel your legs on the chair. Feel how you're sitting. Are you sitting more to one side than the other? Is your weight nice and even in your legs? And feel the chair gently supporting your thighs. Again, any tension, grab a hold of it, release it with that lovely cleansing breath. Again, deep breath in through your nose and out slowly through your mouth. The next breath, take that breath and your attention down into your lower legs, your ankles and your feet. Do you feel supported? Do you feel grounded? Can you feel any tension or unevenness in your feet? Are your toes or your feet fidgeting slightly? That's fine, just ask them to relax. Our feet do an awful lot for us. They hold us up, they keep us moving and taking the burden of our weight all day. So we need to gently thank them for that and ask them to relax. And as you're breathing in slowly, just notice any thoughts that come into your mind. That's fine, it's natural. Don't worry about them. Just accept them and watch them as they leave your mind. These thoughts will pass through. You don't need to hold on to them, and it's not a problem. The thoughts can be very much like an ocean, where you see the tide gently lapping against the shore. And every time a thought comes in, it's like the wave, and then it's gone as it reaches the ground and then disappears. In your next breath in, I want you to mentally thank your body and your mind, everything that it's done for you throughout today and always. Our minds and our bodies work double time to keep us moving, look after us. We'd be lost without those minds and those bodies. So just take time just to thank it for everything that it does for you. Then take another deep breath in through your nose, feeling that chest cavity rise, lovely warm air coming in. And then gently release that breath, slowly exhaling out through your nose or through your mouth, whichever is comfortable. And then gradually ask your breathing to come back to its normal rhythm, its normal pace. And in your own time, only when you're ready, bring your focus back to the room and gently open your eyes. Excellent. Hopefully we didn't fall asleep, or if we did, that's good. That's exactly what our bodies needed at that
I
moment
couldn't
in
stop
time.
yawning.
Can I just say something, Jeanette?
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks to your lovely osteopath talk on the weekend, I've actually realised now when I do my yoga, I've actually sorry about this, I found out where my pelvic floor is. I didn't know what my
Excellent.
diaphragm was meeting, and now
No, you do.
I do. Told you I'm a bloke.
You know what? You're not alone in that, Christine. Many of us don't realise how to use our pelvic floor and our diaphragm when we're breathing. So it takes practice, but it was a really good session, and we can talk more about that at another time with everybody. So hopefully that was nice and relaxing. And like I say, we're going to look at the psychological impact of loss, because actually when we think about menopause, a lot of what we read, what we hear, and probably what we think comes from a scarcity mindset. You have a loss of hormones, loss of fertility, potentially loss of youth, you might be thinking, loss of purpose, loss of confidence, loss of our bodies as they used to look like when we were younger, perhaps the loss of our ability to make our bodies work the way we want them to, loss of periods, which, as we've said yesterday, is actually something to be celebrated. But there are all sorts of things that are bound up with menopause that focuses on loss. But it doesn't have to be that way, as we've said. So what I wanted you to do is think about, when I say the psychological impact of loss, what does that mean to you? What are your thoughts around that? You can either put it in the chat box or come off mute and share. It's entirely up to you.
What your mind thinks?
Yeah. Can you elaborate? Or not?
Really?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, psychology is to do clearly with your mind.
The thing is, I've got two older sisters, and they just said, well, just deal with it again. So being the youngest, I haven't got that aging thing because they will always be older than me.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, anybody?
I think the only thing that comes to mind for me is an end of an era. That's the only thing. I don't think I see it as a loss in that sense. I just think it's an end of a chapter.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I think when I first thought about going through the menopause, because I had my children young, I suppose I kind of thought, oh, that's life taking away that chance to have any more children if I did decide to. I no longer think like that anymore because I've got sort of more freedom. But yeah, I remember thinking like that to begin with.
That can be a big one, actually, Michelle. So it kind of comes back to the psychological impact is actually how that impacts your emotions, your thought processes, whether how it impacts your mental health, because a lot around menopause is wound up with our emotions and our sense of self. And certainly that idea that you can no longer have children can be a big issue. So one client who was on the mastermind earlier this year, who was 39, desperate to have children, had fertility issues for a very long time, and was going through IVF treatment at the same time as her doctor and her fertility specialist said, you know, you could actually be going into menopause. Brought up all sorts of questions for her around, can I have a baby? And actually, if I don't have a baby because of menopause, what does that mean for me? We also talked about the loss of intimacy or the loss of a sex drive. That for her was very big. Her relationship was such that she was the person that always came forward with, you know, she was the one that had the sex drive basically. So she would initiate intercourse and that with her husband. And she said, if I don't have that, then what's left in my relationship? Which was a big one. And actually for me, I don't have children, and I never really was maternal or even thought that I wanted children. It just never came up until I realized I was in menopause. Then I started asking myself, not regretting, but I started asking myself, what if, how different would life have been now and in the future? And actually I started to mourn the fact that I couldn't have children then, even if I wanted to. That choice, for me, it was a loss of choice. Even if my choice had been not to do it, I suddenly was losing choice and control.
I can relate to that, Janet, because I've not got children. I've never I've not really sort of, it's not that I've not wanted children, it's never sort of happened. So but you say when you reflect sort of like later on and you start the menopause and realise, I kind of looked at it that I then didn't have how am I trying to explain it? Sort of like as you get older and your families are growing and they're having children and everything's flourishing and moving forward, that I didn't have that. Although I cherish my nephews and my nieces and what have you,
I do.
I didn't have that. And it was only after starting to go through the menopause and when you reflect and, you know, have those low moments, which we all do, that I felt that. So I can relate to what you're saying there massively.
Yeah. It was quite a surprise when it happened to me.
Yeah.
And I have and 2 nephews and a niece, and the niece has now got a baby, so I'm a great aunt.
Well, so
I love that. I love that.
My nephews, I'm exactly the same. My nephew's got so I've got a great nephew now who's 4 months old, and you know, I embrace every minute that I can with him, because it's sort of like, you know, another generation and adding to the clan, if you like. But it does make you stop in your tracks and think.
Definitely. And for me, it was a big surprise. It's quite a shock that I felt that way.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of that, because I take my dad to appointments, and I always I hope that when I'm old, I would have someone like me. But knowing what a brat I was as a child, I don't know if I'd actually want one. And my hubby always said he didn't like children when he was one, and nothing's changed. But we are both the ultimate babysitters and carers, and but I can give them back. And I must admit, I think if I have that, it is going to be the biggest shock ever. I'm maternal as in caring. I cared for my mum. I've got a real caring nature, but when it comes to children, I always joke I could never eat a whole one. And that's almost my attitude to them. I'm like, I love them, but then I'm like, it's yours. I give
the great niece back when she needs a nappy changed.
I've got 5. I've got 4 great nieces and 1 great nephew.
When I was younger, I always said I wasn't going to have children, and then I fell pregnant whilst I was on the pill when I was 16. So kind of that took care of that. But I think even now, sort of knowing that knowing that I have got children and grandchildren, not that I would change it, but I would have been happy either way to have kids or not have kids.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Any
I
other
think,
thoughts?
yeah,
Oh,
for
go on,
me,
Maria.
it was another layer of grief, because I lost my husband when I was 3 months pregnant with my one and only daughter, who's now 26. So when I started going through perimenopause, it was that realization that I wasn't going to have the option, or my time was ticking, that I wasn't going to have the option of experiencing pregnancy from a positive perspective, because obviously 3 months pregnant and, being widowed, killed instantly in a car accident. So the shock, I was in shock for a very long time, and obviously going through that whole grieving cycle and stuff like that. So yeah, it was another wave of grief for me, to be honest. But then once I realized I didn't actually want to give birth to my own more children, it kind of released me from the pressure.
It's that moment when you remember the pain rather than the joy.
It's just that whole thing of going back to nappies and the potential of then ending up back in the solo parent situation if whatever happens in any relationship, So,
I think I had a reality check when the first nappy I changed was my mum's. So I think that, I think that's my that's my parenting.
But it's interesting that we talk about it. Another lady I've been talking to who is, what is she, 40? She has 3 boys. Her last child she had quite late. He's probably only about 18 months old. So she says, or quite late on. And for her, menopause, she's looking forward to it because she said, my family's complete. I don't need this part of me as a woman anymore. So I want to welcome this because my family's complete. I can then focus on me as a person and as a woman, which is a really interesting way of dealing with it. And it just goes to show again, we all deal with it differently.
I was a little bit like that, to be honest, because my boys are 19 and 16. And I had a lot of problems with my periods growing up anyway, but then I had really, really difficult pregnancies and deliveries. And whether people agree with it or not, I had my tubes tied in my 20s. So I knew I didn't want any more children because I had so many difficulties in my pregnancies and my deliveries. I didn't want to take that risk. So, and I'm actually, I mean, the ladies don't know this, but Janet, that I'm on the wait list for a hysterectomy because of all these problems I'm having, and it's a long wait list because of COVID. So I've actually got the Mirena coil, and I'm on the pill, and I'm on HRT. It's like, yes, I've got all these hormones going through. It's been horrendous. But my issues with all of this perimenopause and what I've struggled with is the emotional roller coaster, the psychological side of things that they don't tell you about when you hit perimenopause and when they go on HRT, and when that hits you like a ton of bricks. That I struggled with. But I was actually looking forward to when I was going to go through menopause, because then I knew that I wouldn't have periods and this and the other. And that was before I even ended up going on the wait list for hysterectomy, and having all that taken care of and knowing I wouldn't have to worry about all that ever again. So I have a slightly different perspective on all of this as well.
Again, it shows because we've all come from different lives. We've all come from different lives, different backgrounds, different physical bodies. So our experiences are all going to be different. The one thing that is key here is the fact that we will, at some point, whether it is through natural means or through surgical means, we will all experience menopause, or we will all get to menopause. That's an absolute given. Whether we,
I was expecting to go through menopause after the operation, and they've actually hit perimenopause before I got the operation. They didn't do it in time for me.
It's almost like the universe has said, oh, you really want this? Let's start it off early for you.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show we all experience things differently. So it makes it really difficult dealing with it. And our psychological impacts, the way we think about menopause and what it means to us, is going to be different. There will be, for all of us at some point, an element of a sense of loss or a sense of grief around something. And I think Maria talking about her grief with her partner, losing her partner and things like that, and then the grief of not being able to have another child, even if she wanted to, is really, really kind of, for me, hits the nail on the head. Because whatever change there is, you are essentially saying goodbye to one part of your life and welcoming in another. And before you can get into welcoming in another, you've got to almost go through a grieving process for what you're leaving behind. Tina, you said it's about, you know, a new era, leaving one era and going to another. There will be elements of, oh, I left behind that part of me, or I'm going to miss that part of me. And we don't realise that until we get to this stage.
Yeah.
Michelle, I noticed you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
Did you want
it's
to
just,
jump in?
yeah, please, thank you. It's just interesting listening to those of you that have, you know, have not had children, because my youngest daughter, she's nearly 25, and she was diagnosed with endometriosis when she was 18, and she goes through sort of she's had to go through like a menopause for a little while with the medication, and she's now on the Mirena, you know, she has the Mirena coil, but she goes through sort of ups and downs where she doesn't want children, but she says that, I think, because she thinks that she may not be able to have them. You know, it's all of that, and the possibility of maybe having to have a hysterectomy before she's even given that chance to have children. So yeah, it's just interesting hearing it from everyone's perspective.
Yeah. And it just, again, it shows that whatever they teach you at school when you're, I don't know, what is it, 11 or 12 even, it might be a little bit earlier, about fertility and puberty, it's all very glossy. It's all very nice. They don't teach you about PCOS, about endometriosis. They don't teach you about any of those things that can happen to you. So they can become real shocks to the system and really, really difficult. The fact endometriosis is a big one. I have got some facts here. I love a fact. Actually, the first one is that 20% of all women will experience problematic periods throughout their lives. And in that, only less than 1 in 100 will actually seek any medical or professional advice to sort those out. Endometriosis is the second most common condition that women experience through fertility and periods. And that is 1 in 10 women get that. What else have we got? You don't need to know about incontinence. We're not at that one yet. But when you think about it, that's an awful lot of women that are going through life experiencing their fertility or their womanhood, for lack of a better word, in a really difficult, uncomfortable way. So actually, when they get to menopause and they lose that, they may actually be really loving it. That's an interesting, Maria. Social etiquette.
Yeah,
There's more.
I'm not sure whether it's come with age or just moving in circles where you're exposed to a lot more of female friends and stuff that have found it hard to conceive naturally. But the pressure, particularly in specific generations or cultures, the pressure and the nagging to have children, and if an individual, or being surrounded by, you know, I go to church, so I'm surrounded by loads of family units. And if you're in a rapidly growing family church, you know, where there's kids sprugging up everywhere, it's really difficult for those couples that are really struggling with fertility. And I think there's got a, you know, I still can't believe in this day and age how people still just ask questions. Oh, when you're going to have the baby, when you're going to have a kids, you might not want them, you might have trouble, you know what I mean? And I think there needs to be some social etiquette about having those.
They almost pity you, don't they, if you say, well, I'm choosing not to have children. They look at you and say, oh,
yeah, you're somehow unnatural.
Yeah.
And
I had that as well. Yeah.
And if you're struggling to have children, and obviously, Michelle, I'm sorry for your daughter experiencing that so young, and
Thank you.
Struggles and stuff, the pressure that poor young, you know, somebody in that situation is going to be under because people are just making their comments.
Yeah.
You know? So I think we need to wise up and just not say them, to be honest, and just mind our own business. Unless we know the person well enough, you know.
I could not agree with you more.
I
When
mean-
I was younger, as soon as I was married, I had pressure from my own mother. Are you going to have children? I want to be a grandmother. It got so bad that I took my dad to one side and said, Dad, you need to stop her, because otherwise we're going to fall out, because I don't know if I'm going to have children. And actually, if I decide to, or if I decide not to, that's a decision between me and Andrew. I'm not going to have them because she wants to be a grandmother. That's not gonna cut mustard. And I was working in investment banking with a group of people, none of which had children, big party animals, all career minded. So it never really hit the radar screen, except when mum came round at the weekend. And that was really tough.
Gosh.
Christine, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was going to say is basically I was in a vile relationship, which is why I couldn't have children. I mean, the cat was affected badly enough. And by the time I came out of that, and now I'm with Terry, and he's 9 years older than me, to be honest, I did my grieving when I split from that person, because I thought, that's it, it's done. But, you know, he'd have probably ended up killing the child anyway. So it was just horrible. So now I'm with the best person ever. And, you know, I know it sounds weird, but I'm one of these people that grieves each time and like, yeah, that's done. I as you
Yeah.
say, Tina, it's the chapter. I move into a different chapter and it's done. And as I say, I'm in a fantastic relationship now. There's no children, but it means we get to do things. And I say I love my nieces and nephews and great nieces and however many they are like rats. My family sometimes they are just like, oh, another one, okay. You know, and I love them to pieces, but I've almost stepped back and I've realised that's not my bit, and I'm sort of, you know, I'm certainly not. I would have liked to have had children, but when I got to that stage, it couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking at my age, I wouldn't have a good one.
Yeah.
So I'm almost like tick. Be
Yeah.
a godmother, be an auntie, be a babysitter. So I'm quite a good
Yeah.
babysitter, ladies. If any of you, your children or great children or whoever wants them. And yeah, again, Michelle, so sorry to hear about your daughter, because I say
Bless you.
it
Thank
is that
you.
thing. The minute, I mean, like my one of my nieces, she's got a ring on her finger. Oh, when you get married? Then next, when you
Yeah.
have a babies? Next,
Mm.
it's just it is etiquette. It's horrible.
Way
Yeah.
it is like the moment you get engaged. I previously, when I was engaged, I had was supposed to be future mother-in-law, planning the wedding. She gave the ring because it was her grandmother's ring. Planning the wedding, planning the bridesmaid. Oh my goodness! And then next thing was, oh, when you know, are you going to start a family and all those added pressures? And it's not something that, you know, with the partner that I was with then, that we'd agreed that we didn't want children, but to everyone else it was so alien that,
Yeah.
you know, it was
That social pressure that Maria
yeah,
brought up,
but
that
for
we've all
everybody having to
experienced.
explain all the time
Mm.
that, you know, we didn't want children and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But yeah, so
I remember my mother-in-law telling me years ago that she dragged me to one side and told me that I was a bad wife and that she wished her son had never married me because I wouldn't give him children.
Wow.
I was like, have you spoken to your son? Have you checked that he wants children?
yeah,
And
exactly.
then it's like, yet you're really proud of the life your son has. And as I said to her, he didn't get it by working local. Who do you think has given him this life? Who is
Yeah.
it that's out there with the career?
yeah,
But it didn't matter. I was still a bad wife. You know, I've kind of forgiven her. She's old now, so. But it really, those things hit home because, you know, we've been married 36 years and I still to this day remember it. So they hit home. And again, that's probably part of the reason why, as I came to menopause, that sense of loss of being able to have a child started to hit inward. And when I think about it, it wasn't just loss. I was starting to feel guilty that I hadn't done that. And had I made a bad decision?
mm,
I know I hadn't. The decision we made was the right one for both of us. But these things, when something is changing in your life, different things come to the fore, those emotions and those feelings, and it can really impact you psychologically. It is a grieving process. But the good thing is,
It has to come up though to come out, doesn't it?
exactly, yeah, and it feels negative that we're talking about this, but it's something that actually we don't always acknowledge. We might say, oh, it's just the end of an era, but that can mask other things that are going on for us. And if we are holding something back, it's going to mean that it's going to be a more difficult, or could be a more difficult transition. So the idea is to look and think, is something, am I holding something back? Am I holding on to something? Am I feeling any loss, anything that could actually mean that my experience of that transition is harder or more difficult? Once you know what's going on, you can deal with it. And there's lots and lots of different tools that you can use to deal with it. And I know my colleagues here that do HR and counsellors will know about the Kubler-Ross change curve. I use this a lot because actually this describes the various feelings that we can have at any given time towards a change, a significant change in our lives. Menopause and perimenopause can be a significant change, physically, emotionally, with our mental health, everything. And we don't always realise that until we're in the midst of it, until we're having a complete meltdown because, we can't find the other sock when we've done the washing. And it will be something stupid like that will cause the meltdown. And you think, I don't know why this is. I was sitting there earlier this week watching a TV show that I love, and it was the last episode, and I knew it was going to be sad. I was bawling my eyes out, ridiculously so, for the show. My husband, Andrew, turned around and said to me, seriously, are you okay? Do you want me to stop this? And I'm like, no, it's just so sad. But I realised actually there was a lot more going on there. So I must have had like a spike of hormones or something, and I was feeling a lot more emotional. But these things can come out. So with the Kubler-Ross change curve, there are 5 distinct feelings that you can have that bring you down and back out. You can go backwards and forwards on these, and it's worth actually just taking a bit of time to think, where am I on this curve in terms of my menopause journey or the way I think about menopause? So the first area is denial. I know I had this. I talked to you yesterday about my Little Red Riding Hood story. I was complete denial. No, it's not going to happen to me. It's never going to get me. I'm going to be the one that's different, because I didn't want it. Because for me, it was wound up with a lot of ideas of loss. I thought I was getting older, I was getting frumpy, I wouldn't be able to do things, my other half wouldn't find me sexy, all sorts of stuff, as well as it means I can't have children, even though I don't want them. Denial. Then you go into anger. So yeah, then I got angry about it. If anybody talked to me about menopause, like when my mum said, oh, I bet you're getting hot flushes now, I will bite her head off like no tomorrow. And I got really angry about it. And I got angry with myself when I realized that some of my reactions to things were menopause related. When my teammate said to me, I think you should see if you can go to the GP and get some HRT. I reckon you're going through menopause. I tore her off a strip just for even suggesting that, because I was still denying it, and I was angry that I was at that stage. Then you get into bargaining. Now, I'm not sure that we actually do a bargain on it. It's not like we're making a pact, like, if you do this for me, then I'll do that for you. But you can start to try and find ways to put off the inevitable. So I found myself with a really full-on trainer. It's like, menopause is not going to make me fat. I'm going to lose so much weight and I'm going to get so fit. Well, it nearly killed me in the end. But that was my bargaining. I might be going through this, but no one's going to know because I'm going to be this superwoman. Then you get depression. Now, with menopause, you can get depression earlier. That's one of the things that can show up before you see any other changes. But then I was depressed about, oh my God, this is it. I've really got to live with this. I've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I had to take 4 months off work this year.
Oh, that's hard, Michelle.
Mm.
really hard. But
Mm.
it does happen. I've been there myself a few years back when I first started perimenopause. I was off for 4 months as well, and it's really, really hard. And when I finally realised and owned up to being in menopause, I was depressed again because I was mourning what I was leaving behind, which to me was that youthful person with full of energy, could do anything she wanted, actually looked good in a bikini, whereas now you wouldn't get me anywhere remotely close to a bikini, not even indoors, let alone in public. Now, the lady that's just joining us is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
Hey, Catherine. This is awesome. Hopefully she'll join us shortly. So those are those. You then get to stage 5, which is acceptance. Actually, when you start accepting the stage that you're at in your menopause journey and recognizing that you can do something about it that's positive, then you're going to have a better experience. You want to always be aiming to get to the acceptance stage. Don't try and jump there in one go, because that, again, won't happen. You often have to go through these various stages on the change curve before you get there. Hi, Catherine, can you hear us all? Hopefully she can. So the Kubler-Ross change curve is really, really useful. I'd invite you now just to have a think around those 5 stages of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And just have a think, where do you think you are in terms of your feelings about perimenopause, menopause?
I feel I've gone straight to acceptance because I feel at my age, something should have happened.
How do you feel about the fact that for you something has potentially not happened, or you've not felt all these bad things? That's good.
Joyful, because I mean, I went through, as I said, 3 years of sort of, a week off here and there. Had an op, nothing since. I have bitch moments. I think hubby can see it coming. So I think I just look at him, open my mouth, and he's like, yeah, I'll walk away. I've had a little bit of brain fog, but then, as he said, he just said to me, your brain is in so many different places. He literally is almost like, I've got my own little devil and he's my little angel. My devil is like, my devil's almost like running over there to kick the angel off. But I don't know if it's, I just don't know. I'm joyful because, but I feel bad because everyone else has experienced bad stuff. And I'm thinking, why me?
So the coach in me says it's great that you're acceptant. You've got to acceptance. Don't spend hours doing it, but just dig into that bit where you said, but I feel bad. Why me?
Yeah.
Don't focus lots of energy, but just think, why did that come to mind?
Yeah, well, I feel bad for everyone else because I'm listening to everyone else's stories and thinking, I've got away with it, possibly.
Oh,
Cool.
no, at least there's somebody that says that they've experienced that. I think that's great.
Yeah. So Tina, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I thought I'd better use it instead of jumping in.
It's fine.
I'll mute again.
I don't always spot
doing it, so I thought I'd better give it a go. No, I think a couple of months ago, I was probably between anger and depression, but not because of going into perimenopause, but because of how it was affecting me. And I think it's because of all of the brain fog and the not being able to function, not being able to string a sentence together, let alone get words out. And it was the impact it was having on me, knowing that it just wasn't me as a person, and that was the anger side and the way it was making me feel and the depression it was giving me. Now I'm in the acceptance stage because I think feeling like I'm coming out the other end, and the HRT kicking in, and the fact that I feel like my marbles are now, I'm retrieving my marbles is the only way I can put it, that I'm accepting that it's happened, and I'm absolutely fine with it happening, but I just feel like I'm a lot more in control.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt so out of control, and that's what made me angry, and that's what was making me depressed.
Yeah.
So absolutely. That's the only way I can describe it. So it wasn't the menopause itself; it was how it was affecting me and what it was doing to me, as opposed to going through it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Absolutely. Kelly says denial pushing into anger. Michelle is saying acceptance now. She was frustrated with the brain fog to begin with, but find it hilarious. It's another quirk. Yeah, I agree with you there. But it is that you actually, once you get acceptance of what is happening to you, and sometimes that comes through from because you've learned about it. You've been able to talk to other women and realize that what you're experiencing is not unusual, and that you might actually find that what you're experiencing is nowhere near as bad as somebody else. That actually you can start to accept it. Once you can accept something, you're not pushing it, you're not denying it, you're not getting angry with it, you're just going, you know what? This is what I'm feeling right now. And actually, I need to go with that feeling, and I need to find ways where I can, as Tina said, bring back control so I can control it. Because menopause can take over your life. It can control you if you let it. And you can almost find yourself in that space of almost feeling sorry for yourself or using it as an excuse for bad behavior. You know, we've all seen those comedy shows where the guys, it was Little England or one of those, where the guys used to dress up as old ladies, and the sketch would be they'd be in a queue in the supermarket and they'd push people out of the way and say, "Come on, it's my turn, I'm jumping in the queue because I'm old." You could almost say, "Oh, well, I'm really in a bad mood this morning and I had to go at everyone because of my hormones. I'm menopausal." But actually, it's accepting that you're menopausal, but you can do something about that, not using it as an excuse to be difficult with those around you, or even difficult with yourself. Once you get acceptance, you don't fight it. You go, okay, this is happening because of my hormones. So, okay, I keep forgetting what I'm going to do. So what can I do about that? Well, I'm going to write a list of things. I have checklists all over the place. When I go on a holiday, I have a checklist of what things I want to pack, and I get them out on the bed and tick them off. It's really anally retentive, but it's the only way I can make sure I've got everything. I do an early morning networking on Friday morning. A number of us do. Maria is probably the same. I get everything ready the night before. I get all my clothes out, all my badges, name badges, everything's in the right place. I do my bag. I did forget something this week because it was something that I don't usually have and need to take with me because it was out of my routine. So it is finding those ways where you can manage whatever the symptom is at the time. If it's brain fog that's really crippling you, find a way to accept it and go, okay, I'm going to live with this. I'm going to focus on what I can do so I can live with it better. I was just going to see, because I know that Jackie's got to acceptance. Yes, she's learned to focus on other goals. I've been having relationship issues, but that's another story. Okay, Jackie, that's a story for us to talk about another time, you and I. But again, acceptance is actually, I've got the chance to change my life here. So I'm going to focus on the goals that I want for me and for my future. That's what's helped Jackie to be in that acceptance stage and to be able to manage those psychological impacts. Michelle, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, knowing that the brain fog was perimenopause and not dementia, like it runs in the family on my dad's side, it was that. I think that's why I find it funny now, because it's like, whew, yeah. I've given it a reason.
Yeah. Excellent. And it's lovely, Catherine, to have you. I know you're listening along and we got your message, which is great. So for those of us that aren't in acceptance, obviously that's going to be our ultimate goal. Where we know where we are at the moment, what I want you to do is think about, when you're off of this call, think about how you might be able to move yourself forward one step towards where you want to be. You know, acceptance may not be where you want to be. If you're in denial, you might just want to get through to anger, or you might want to get through to bargaining, because going from denial straight to acceptance isn't realistic. So realistically think about what will be your next step. And what could you do? One simple thing that could move you forward. If you're already in acceptance, think about what could move you backwards, because you could move backwards. So therefore, what could you do to safeguard against that? That's fine, Maria, no problem. I'm really relaxed about if you want your cameras on, have them on. If you don't want to, no problem with that. It's your safe space, ladies. So does that make sense? Move yourself forward one spot if you're not yet in acceptance and think, what can I do? What's one simple thing I might be able to do that will help me to move forward? If you're in acceptance, what can I do to make sure I stay here and move forward so that I don't fall back into one of the other stages? What might push me backwards? Because we can, on that change curve, we can go backwards as well as forwards. So also think, actually, if I want to move forwards and I want to move forwards from acceptance so that I'm actually thriving and I'm actually working with menopause, I'm making it as a positive in my life, as something that's giving me that kind of life force and that vigor to move forward. What help do you need? Can you do it on your own, or do you need help? So for me, menopause, as I've said before, hit me like a juggernaut. I wasn't prepared for it. I kept believing that I could get away with it. It wouldn't happen to me. Ridiculous, really. I can't sit here now thinking, why on earth did I think that? But I know why that was. But actually, once I had learnt to accept it, got the support I needed, and for some of us, like myself and Tina and others, that was HRT. That really helped. I also decided I wanted to learn about it. I like to understand. I'm not really a process-driven person, but on things like that, where it's impacting me physically and mentally, I wanted to learn about it because I wanted to know what was going on in my body. So what could I do about that? So I went away and I learned. And actually, that's what brought me to doing this now, because my driving force was I had such a crappy experience, mostly because of my own denial of it all and trying to run away from it. But actually, I don't want other women to feel that way, because you don't have to feel that way. HRT will help you, but you've still got to work on what's going on up here, because the HRT might help with that a little bit. You've got to be able to understand yourself. So what stage do you want to be at? What can you do to keep yourself moving forward? And where do you need help? Jacqueline said, being prepared, having face cooling spray, a bedroom for sleep, using a fan. Yeah, absolutely. Keeping a journal. Definitely. I talk about, Jackie, it's brilliant having her on here because she's done one of my courses before. So she knows all the tricks of the trade. You could run this one, Jacqueline. Actually, understanding what your normal is. If you don't know what normal looks like for you, take some time just to notice your emotions or notice how you're feeling in your body. Journal on them, the good and the bad. And you will find over the course of time that you'll have less bad and more good. And just think, what do I need to do when I'm feeling like this to not stop me feeling that way, but help myself to feel better. Accept that I'm having those feelings. When we're having that emotional meltdown or a panic attack, or we're just going, I cannot deal with this anymore. It's taking stock, stopping and going, okay, take a deep breath, just chill a bit. Yeah, Christine's saying that she kept a diary since she was 14. Definitely. You read back over what you've done before and you can marvel at how far you've come. Practical things like a good old fan, which again, it's getting really hot in here for me. Water, cooling sprays, just where you can manage the physical, you can then focus on the mental health and the emotional and psychological stuff. That makes sense to you?
Yeah, massively so. I can't take HRT because cancer is absolutely rife throughout the family, unfortunately, parents, grandparents, brother.
Mm.
When I first started with my symptoms, way back, feel like it's been going on forever. I did masses of research, and things like by changing diet and by exercising more made me not only feel better physically but mentally, because I knew that I was doing something to try and not fight the symptoms as such, but to help myself. So I think they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
And certainly not tomorrow, on Thursday evening. I know when I spoke to many of you before we got onto the programme, a lot of you wanted some practical tools. So on Thursday, I'm going to share my little Bible, which is, and Jacqueline knows these, which is my menopause, actually Christine knows them as well, the menopause
I've forgotten them.
lifesavers.
Oh yeah.
I'll take you to one side.
Brain fog,
Christine's
brain
on
fog.
the naughty step. She's only just finished the course. She's on the naughty step. So I've got what I call my menopause lifesavers. 5 things that if you can do them 5 a day, you will find that you will have a more positive experience and you'll be able to take back control. I'm all about you taking back control and finding the choice in how you live your life.
Found them.
Well done. Wrote them down. Wrote them down. So I'll share some of those with you tomorrow.
Brilliant.
Some will work for you, some won't. Take them on board, go try them, and just see what helps you. And they will address both the physical and the emotional side. Yeah, Jacqueline's saying meditation. We use a lot of, in my main program, we do meditation and we use visualization. And I know that Jackie took that on board big time and is completely sold on it and uses it still. Michelle, you're a meditation fan as well.
Yeah, it's got me through lots of traumatic experiences. Yeah.
So what I'll do for you ladies, when I send you the link to this recording, I have 4 meditations that I've produced to go with various courses. And I've got those on YouTube. I will give you the links to those as well. So you can use those whenever you want to. There is a straightforward body scan, which is just to get you in the zone. There is another one to deal with anxiety, another one to deal with fear. There's a grounding one. I think that's the 4 of them. There might be 5, but I'll give you the links to those as well so that you can go. They're free. You can go, have a listen, use them if you want to, download them, and take them away, and hopefully they will help you as you transition through this stage.
Thank you.
Excellent. So ladies, I think we're gonna it's past. Any quick questions? No?
No.
You're all completely baffled. Excellent. Well, what I'm going to do, let me stop the recording now.